Senator, from our view, the budget number 961 meets the requirements and threats that we face. And
that's not the number. The number is 892.6. You're adding reconciliation. That's my whole point. Why not give us a base budget of 961 or whatever the right number is, what you consider the right number, and then we can operate and make our decisions. Why do it in this bifurcated way that really is fooling the American people about what the defense budget is?
What you are about to watch is Senator Angus King putting Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in a very uncomfortable position, pressing him on two things at once: why the Pentagon is renaming military bases back after Confederate generals, and why the defense budget is being split into two pieces instead of presented as one honest number. These are not small questions, and the answers Hegseth gives reveal a lot about how this administration is making decisions.
Senator King.
Mr. Secretary, I'm somewhat puzzled. I grew up in Virginia where Robert E. Lee was revered. I think when I was a kid, his birthday was a school holiday. But as I grew older and learned more about American history, I learned that he fit the classic definition of a traitor. He took up arms against his country. He broke his oath as a member of the United States Army, which he took upon entering his career at West Point. Why are you going through these incredible gymnastics, finding current soldiers or other soldiers to rename? And you slipped a minute ago. You said we're returning these bases to their original names. Robert E. Lee, leading general of the Confederacy, Pickett, the other names. Why are you doing this? I don't understand what the motivation is to rename bases for people who took up arms against their country on behalf of slavery. What possible motivation can there be for this? Who is telling you to do this? Who is urging you to do this?
Senator, the veterans and service members across the country who have deployed from Fort Bragg or Fort Benning or Fort Hood or Fort Pickett, there's a legacy, there's a connection to those bases and to those places, to what they trained for there, what they did for, and what they came home back to. That matters to them. Ask enough of them, as I do, all the time, before and later. And we recognize the service of those who were put into the replacement. No one's disputing that. I would never dispute that. What we're looking at is erasing history, erasing names, erasing base names that service members are tied to. Talk to people that serve at Bragg. Ask people that serve at Fort Bragg or Fort Benning if they like the fact that the names have been returned. And to a man and to a woman, they will tell you, thank God we're back to Fort Bragg, and thank God we're back. And thankfully, because so many men and women in this country have served, there's a Benning and a Bragg and a Pickett and a Hood has a Silver Star or a Medal of Honor that we could rename the base to because of the limits of what Congress allowed us to do. So this is something we've been proud to do, something that's important for the morale of the Army, and those communities appreciate that we've returned it back to what it was instead of trying to play this game of erasing names.
We're not erasing history, Mr. Secretary. We're recognizing history and recognizing that mistakes have been made in this country. The greatest of all was the Civil War, where people took up arms against their country on behalf of the institution of slavery. And to continue the practice of recognizing those people and honoring them by the naming of these bases is, I believe, an insult to the people of the United States. Let me talk about the budget. I don't understand why the budget is coming to us in two pieces. Why not give us an honest base budget instead of putting a piece of it in reconciliation? As I understand it, OMB is saying we're going to have a flat defense budget for the next 4 or 5 years. Are we planning reconciliation every year from now on? Why not give us an honest budget telling us what your priorities are, and then we can consider it. This committee always works in a bipartisan basis on a defense budget. We all want to see some increases in the defense budget, and yet you're giving us this this fake, here's a piece of the budget, here's another. You're cutting, in the base budget, you're cutting shipbuilding in half and saying, well, we're going to make it up in reconciliation. Are we going to have reconciliation every year, which basically, by the way, puts a significant part, 10 or 15% of the defense budget in an wholly partisan decision-making process, whereas in the history of this committee, it's always been bipartisan. Why are we doing it this way?
Senator, from our view, the budget number 961 meets the requirements and threats that we face. And
That's not the number. The number is 892.6. You're adding reconciliation. That's my whole point. Why not give us a base budget of 961 or whatever the right number is, what you consider the right number, and then we can operate and make our decisions. Why do it in this bifurcated way that really is fooling the American people about what the defense budget is?
We're not trying to fool anybody, sir. It's two bills, one budget. We're working with OMB, and we feel very comfortable with the number of 961 billion.
Why don't you give us a straight-up budget for the Defense Department? That's my question.
Senator, this is a straight-up budget for the Defense Department, and it's a
It is not.
13% increase over what Joe Biden gave us.
It is a two-part defense budget. Part of it is in reconciliation instead of in the budget that's being presented to this committee. This committee only has a partial review of the budget. I don't understand why we can't have an honest, straightforward budget instead of this son of Oko that you're putting over on us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So let's break down what actually happened there. King opens with something personal. He says he grew up in Virginia where Robert E. Lee was treated like a hero. And then he tells you that as he got older, he realized Lee fit the definition of a traitor. That is, a deliberate move. He is not coming in cold with a political argument. He is telling Hegseth, and everyone watching, that this is not about partisanship. This is about history catching up with a bad decision. Then King asks the question that Hegseth never really answers cleanly. Who is telling you to do this? That question is designed to make Hegseth either name political pressure from above, meaning the White House, or look like he is making this call himself. Either answer is awkward. Hegseth dodges by going straight to the emotional argument. Soldiers have connections to these names. They love Fort Bragg. They want the names back. That is a real feeling that real veterans have expressed, and Hegseth knows it lands well with a certain audience. But notice he never addresses King's core point, that these bases were originally named after men who took up arms against the United States on behalf of slavery. King does not let it go either. He says we are not erasing history, we are recognizing it. That is a clean counter. He flips Hegseth's own framing right back at him. Hegseth had said renaming the bases was erasing history. King says keeping Confederate names is what erases the full, honest picture of history. Then King pivots hard to the budget. And this is where things get more technical but equally revealing. He is frustrated, and you can hear it, because the defense budget is being presented in two parts. One part goes through the normal committee process, the other goes through reconciliation, which is a partisan legislative tool. King's argument is that this takes a historically bipartisan process and poisons it. He calls the whole approach dishonest, which tells you how genuinely irritated he is. Hegseth's response on the budget is weaker than his response on the base names. He keeps saying it is one budget in two bills, and that the total number is 961 billion. But King's point stands unanswered. Why not submit the full number through the normal process where both parties have equal say? Hegseth does not have a satisfying answer, because there likely is not one that sounds good out loud. Politically, King comes out of this exchange looking like the more prepared of the two. He is asking structural questions about honesty and process, not just scoring political points. Hegseth holds his ground on the emotional argument about veterans and base names, but he loses the budget exchange almost entirely. The broader story here is about how this administration is managing two things at once: cultural symbolism and fiscal strategy, and doing both in ways that frustrate even people who broadly support a strong defense budget. So here's the question for you. Do you think renaming these bases back to Confederate names honors veterans? Or do you think it sends the wrong message about what America stands for? Drop your answer in the comments below, and if you want more breakdowns like this one, subscribe, because we cover these moments the way they deserve to be covered: straight, clear, and without the spin.